All right, we're going to now change gears and go back to our quadratic equations, and we're going to solve them by factoring. But do you remember what a quadratic equation is?
Better.
Okay, wait, let's review it. So right here, the word quadratic, you might even think it has the word 4 in it, and I should have looked up what the etymology of all that. Quad looks like it's 4, but it actually, quadratic has to do with your squared, being a squared term. And usually the ones you've been doing are something like x squared plus 5x plus 6, and we've been doing the box method to factor them. Okay?
Oh,
so there's no struggle at all. We're just going to now turn them into equations. And so now we're going to have them equaling 0. And so now we're going to just do something with them and find out what values for x could go in there and make it equal 0. Okay? So the method's pretty easy. I think you're going to like it. Before that, we have to get into what's called the 0 property. Okay? And so we're just going to go back. One of the favorite multiplication times tables when you were learning them were your zeros, because 3 times 0 is 0, right? Anything times 0 is always 0, okay? But if I go backwards and I ask myself, I say 3 or times what is going to give me 0?
0.
It has to be 0. There's nothing else that can make it equal 0. So the only thing that makes an answer 0 when you're multiplying is to have a 0 there. You with me so far?
Yeah.
And if I had 2 blanks here, if I had something times something to give me 0, how many of them have to be 0?
Only one.
Only one of them has to be 0. The other one can be any number I so desire. But they both could be 0. Okay? So the 0 property says that the only way to equal a 0 when we're multiplying is to have as a product here. The only way you can get a product of 0 is if one of or both of your factors are 0.
Okay.
Does that logically seem okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So if I had something like this, and if I could find its factors using the box method, we have x and x. What makes 14 and adds to negative 5?
7 and 2.
Okay, which one has to be negative?
The 7.
Whoops.
I mean, did I say 7 and 5?
No, I did. I wrote
okay.
it. You said 7 and 2. So that has to be here, right?
Yes.
So we're going to have x minus 7 and x plus 2. Okay? I'm going to erase the box because we don't need it anymore. And now, what we just said about the 0 property back here said that if we have a 0 as a product, one or both of my factors has to be 0. Right now, I have a product of 0.
Right.
So that means one or both of my factors has to be 0, okay? So, if x minus 7 is 0, and I plug that 0 in here, 0 times that is going to equal 0. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. If x plus 2 is 0, that would become a 0 right there. And this x minus 7 times 0 would also be 0.
Right.
Okay? So now that I know that these can be 0 and make my product, what minus 7 equals 0?
7.
You could just add 7 to both sides and get x equals 7. Okay? Also, if you just for some reason didn't know, especially if it's a fraction or something strange. Okay? What plus 2 gives me 0?
2. Negative 2.
Very good. Instead of you writing x equals for both of them, you could have simplified the process, and you could have just said x equals 7, comma, negative 2. That's how we find our product. Okay?
Okay.
So what we do first is we factor it out so we can find two things that multiply together. And since it equals 0, our 0 property says that one or both can be 0.
Okay.
All right? Let's actually check it. If I plug 7 in here, I'd get 0. And I plug the 7 in here, I'd get 9. Does 0 times 9 give you 0?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So let's plug in the negative 2 and see if it works. If I plug a negative 2 in here, I'll get negative 9, and I'll get 0. Does negative 9 times 0 equal 0?
Yes.
Yes, so it worked, okay? You got it.
Yes.
So let's do another one. It's slightly different, but same idea.
Okay.
Okay? And this one, when I factor this one,
X minus 8, X plus 8.
so this has to be 0,
Yep.
and this one has to be 0.
So then you'll have positive 8 and negative 8.
Yes, and I can just simplify it like that, right? 1/8, and you're done. Okay?
Awesome. Okay, I like this.
It's not so bad.
No.
This one, now we can't do the box method, but what can we do to factor that one?
We can take an X out.
Right,
so
good.
X and then X plus 3. And so then one of these has to equal 0.
Okay.
So x will equal 0. So then you'll have to do -3. So x
Yes.
will equal.
And you, after a while, you'll get to the point where you can skip this step and jump from here to the answer.
Okay.
Just like we did here. Because if you have x plus 3 equals 0, you know it's going to be a -3.
right.
So it's almost like you skipped a step. The caution I want to have you do is you didn't have a problem with it. But many of my students, when they see that x out front, they don't have any clue what to do with it. It just means that x has to be 0.
Okay.
And then the -3 at the end.
Okay.
All right? We're done. That's all there is
That
to
was
this.
so
It
easy.
was so nice. So, yeah, so you're just going to factor it out and then set each of your factors to 0 and set it and then solve them.
Okay.
You're done?
Awesome.